Hey everybody, welcome to Renting 101. I call it Flying Out of the Parental Nest. This is Mrs. Maloof, and I have been asked to give you a little bit of a rundown on renting because my husband and I own rental properties, and I have been in rental property management for the last 16 years, so I've seen a couple of things. This is by no means an all-inclusive presentation. It's just some overall tips. Certainly, if you have any questions at all, you can email me anytime, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. So let's start at the beginning. Can you afford an apartment of your own? Now, we're not talking about a college house that you rent with 3 or 4 other people. That's a different kind of situation. This is an apartment of your own. To afford an apartment, you should budget 30% of your income for housing expenses. Now, another way to do this is to take the monthly rent times 40, and that answer should be no more than your annual salary. If you go above that amount, some people choose to do that, you're going to have to cut expenses in other areas. Maybe you don't eat out as often, or you don't go to movies as much, or you buy fewer clothes or furniture, or stay off your Amazon account, or something like that. For example, if you make $2,500 a month, you could reasonably afford $750 for your rent and expenses each month. 2,500 times 0.3 is 750. Using the other formula, 750 times 40 is 30,000, so your annual salary should be about $30,000 for this same rental amount. If you do the math, 2,500 times 12 is 30,000, so both formulas give you the same information. It is just a question of which is easier for you to remember. Beware, this does not mean that you can comfortably afford a $750 a month apartment. There's a nifty little rent calculation tool that I will leave in this slide if you choose to link to it. If not, you can always Google and find one. Now, remember that housing expenses are more than just rent. If you pay on time, you can save yourself money. Monthly late fees can be around $50, and that moves your rent from $750 to $800 very quickly. Consider utilities, water, electric, gas, cable. Those are all expenses. You may choose to go with streaming services. Those are expenses too. Your water may or may not be included. Electric and gas almost never are because those vary so much by usage. Some apartments are all electric, so you won't have to worry about gas. A good landlord, good management company should be able to give you an idea of what those bills average. But remember, because they change with usage, that's only going to be an estimate. Renter's insurance is an expense you should not skip. Typically, it's between $10 and $30 a month, depending on how much you have in your apartment to cover. And the most important part is that it covers liability in case you do something that creates damage. I will give you 2 examples of renter's insurance needs. One was a tenant I had who moved in with literally a washer and a dryer because everything else he owned had burned up in his previous apartment when somebody threw off a bottle rocket that landed on his roof, and he did not have renter's insurance. Another case was a tenant who lived in a building my father-in-law owned. She accidentally started a fire in her fireplace that burned down the entire 16-unit building. She was responsible for the $10,000 insurance deductible on that claim, and her renter's insurance covered that for her. Had she not had renter's insurance, she would have had to pay that $10,000 herself. Don't forget, it's going to cost you money to move. Your parents may help cover these expenses, but don't assume they're going to cover everything. You're going to need furniture. It may be hand-me-downs. It may not all match. You're going to need kitchen items, food, spices, condiments. All that stuff costs money. You're not going to be eating out all the time. You may need appliances. Major appliances are usually provided for you: a stove, refrigerator, possibly a dishwasher. Some places will provide a washer and dryer, not many. It's not likely that you'll have a microwave. You may need other small kitchen appliances. You may want a television. Look around your parents' house. See what you use regularly. Will you need to get one of your own? Where do you start? Start where you always start, on the internet. Look for apartments in the price range you're looking for, in the area where you would prefer to live. Remember, you might need to take a smaller apartment to get into the area where you want to live. It's all about location, location, location. On the flip side, you might get a bigger or better apartment if you go just outside the area where you want to live, within walking or a short driving distance. Now, how do you know if it's a good place? Well, simply read reviews first. Use caution here. Sites are biased. Management company site is always going to lean toward the positive. Public forum is always going to lean toward the negative. We as people tend to post when we're upset, not when we're happy. We don't go online to post good reviews nearly as often as we will go online to complain. Talk to people you know who live in that area. Word travels fast in this regard, and they will know good complexes, bad complexes, good landlords, bad landlords. Schedule a tour of the place if it's possible. If it's occupied, you may not be able to see it inside until the previous tenant moves out. Now, does management matter? Absolutely it can. Corporate management has several advantages. You'll usually have more units to choose from. They may be cheaper on some things because they have their own maintenance teams. They can leverage discounts for services. They can buy in bulk, so to speak. Now, the disadvantage is their on-site manager usually won't have much decision-making ability, and there's very little flexibility regarding policies and so forth. A private owner can make decisions and exceptions by him or herself. For instance, if a tenant wants to be a couple days late with the rent because of a banking mishap, I could waive a late fee. An on-site manager for corporate cannot. Owners also have a vested interest in that apartment. This is their money on the line, and as a result, they should be better about keeping the place up and keeping their investment sound. They want to maintain the value of their property. Now, disadvantage, you may wait a little longer for repairs and things like that because they don't have their own maintenance department and may have to call someone. And frankly, we have all heard about landlords who can be real jerks and you don't want to rent from them. That's why you ask around a little bit. The application process, you can expect to pay an application fee of anywhere from $25 to $100. That covers processing the application, getting a credit check, getting a background check, someone to verify the information on your application. All that stuff costs a management company or an owner money, and they're not going to lose that money on an application if you then don't rent the apartment. The application should ask for your employment history, your salary information, maybe even banking references. You should be prepared to provide what we call paycheck stubs. Those are electronic now, but be prepared to provide that information. You have to show that you've recently gotten a paycheck. They want to believe that you are employed. You'll need personal references more than likely. Don't provide somebody who's not going to say you're great. I will tell you right now, some landlords won't even check that because they expect that you won't provide anybody who's going to badmouth you. Now, here's a caveat. If you don't have a rental history or you don't have established credit, you may be asked to have a cosigner who does. That, in your case, would likely be a parent. That person doesn't live with you. They just co-sign the lease saying that, hey, if my kid doesn't pay or my friend doesn't pay, I'll pay for them. Move in and move out. Once you lease and sign the lease, and get keys, you are officially the resident, and now you are responsible for that apartment until you give proper notice, move out, and return the keys. Keys are the key to possession. A good rental company or landlord is going to give you guidelines up front about things that result in charges when you move out. Follow those guidelines. For instance, if they are going to charge you for holes in the wall when you hang things up, you might want to use command hooks, the Velcro strips, whatever, and not put holes in the walls. Don't try to repair those holes yourself because it will be noticeable. If something gets damaged while you are living there, it is best to call to arrange for a repair immediately. First of all, it could get worse if you don't. And secondly, a bad repair or a cover-up of damage will often cost you more in the end. Generally, if you try to cover something up, it doesn't look nearly as good as you think it does. And we landlords are not nearly as stupid as people think we are. I can generally tell when somebody's done something and lied to me about it. Now, be a good tenant. For one thing, it helps you build a good rental history if you happen to go from this rental to another, and it increases your rapport with your management company or landlord. They are more likely to work with you and be understanding if you have a good rapport. So how do you be a good tenant? Well, first of all, pay your rent on time. Follow the community policies. Be a good neighbor, especially in regard to noise and trash. Call during business hours if that's at all possible. Emergencies are obvious exceptions, but in many cases, managers or landlords answer your calls from a cell phone, and that cell phone is with them all the time. Try to avoid late at night, after dinner hours, weekends, holidays. If you were starting with, I'm really sorry to bother you right now, but make sure that it's worth bothering that person right now, and it's not something that could wait maybe until the next business day. Give a proper move-out notice. Usually that's 30 to 60 days. It will be outlined in your lease. Leave the apartment and appliances clean when you move out, especially appliances. You will get charged if you don't. Your rental history will follow you. If you are not supposed to have a pet and you have a pet, somebody will ask about that and your landlord will tell them. And don't think your landlord doesn't know. Even if they don't see it while you're living there, they will see the effects of it after you've moved out. Don't try to hide things. Be honest. Be a good tenant. I tried to cover the highlights for this. If you are not sure of anything or you have more questions, certainly shoot me an email. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. That's it, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.